Everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beaton, joined by the fantasy master Lothario himself. Clean shaved today. Gray Albright, how you doing over there, Gray?
Hey, what's going on, B-Don? Doing pretty good, man. Just you and I just completed our first draft. I believe it was my first draft, at least
Our
my
first one together for sure. I've had a
yeah.
few drafts. You've done some draft and hold, right? As well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've done like 2 dozen drafts
Yeah.
for
That's the first.
2024, but this is my first draft with auction draft that yeah, I guess it wasn't my first draft. I don't know. Anyway,
Your first
yeah,
home draft for sure.
first first only draft. Yeah, that was my only first only. Yeah. I You know what? It was good. I was happy with my team too. For those who don't know, which is everyone, Beaton and I are in a CBS AO only, and are you in the NO only too?
I am.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we drafted our AO only the other night, and I was pretty happy with my team. I was surprised. Usually, I come out of that draft really unhappy, very, very unhappy. But this time, I felt good. I felt like I got guys. I got Jordan Alvarez. I got Rafael Devers. I got actual superstars. Usually, I don't draft anyone like above $30 overall, and that makes my team look like I'm a socialist. there's never any stars on my team. It's all just guys. But yeah, this year I went a little bit different. I was kind of happy.
I was happy with my team as well. I went more with your strategy, and I think you went more with my strategy. Whereas I spent I think $32 was my max. I spent that on Luis Castillo. Feels weird to have my max player be a pitcher, but pitching was really inflated in that room, so you kind of had to go over value for any pitching whatsoever. But I really liked my team, and
You know what's kind of funny? I went back and looked at my AL only team from last year, and my top hitter was a $20 Alejandro Kirk. this is this is the podcast you're listening to. Oh man, I might have came in second or third in that league. I did pretty good because I got Josh Lowe for free in the free rounds. I got Pablo Lopez for like $12. I had actually a really good team at the end of the day, even though Alejandro Kirk was my top hitter at $20. That's so bad. Oh man, if only I allocated my money a little bit better. Anyway, we should probably talk about outfielders.
although it's good timing, like you said, we're doing the only league drafts. So mediocre outfielders are as exciting as they could possibly be to us this week. So at least we're in the right mind frame to talk about the back half of outfielders. Starting at number 41, Masataka Yoshida. He went 15 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 71 runs, 72 RBIs with a 289 average. You have him projected for 15 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 77, 74, and a 293 average. First half, he hit 316, 10 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 10.7 K rate, 8.1% walk rate. Second half, not quite as clean, 254. K rate went up 8%. Walk rate plummeted to sub 3%. September his K rate jumped over 20%. Did he get figured out as the season went on, or do you think it was a matter of him getting tired?
I would probably say Yoshida with his first year in the majors, he might have gotten tired. It's a lot to ask of anyone to go up to to go from Japan to the States, more games. It's a long season. I didn't even realize he had such a second half because he felt pretty consistent. I guess that shows you confirmation bias versus reality. I didn't put it together that he had a poor second half. Yeah, I'm not. He's such a kind of a boring player in general. Like I don't mind him to be like, I would say what he does, even if he falls off in the second half, I don't think that was a matter of getting figured out because he's, at what? He's 30 years old. I don't really see him having much issues with like, adapting to major league pitching as far as like his uh his hit tool is so good and what he does, his park is so good for Babbitt and what he does like with his K rate, even if it went up in the second half, it was still solid. And the fact that you're not really relying on, huge power or speed from him, that he's just sort of an average hitter, not average, but as in a batting average, that he's got such a good hit tool. I don't mind him. I can't really get super excited about him. That's a good way to start off this podcast. A really boring outfielder. I mean, he's fine, It's like all the guys actually in this tier that we're about to talk about are really kind of fine. I mean, they're not gonna like blow your socks off with upside. At least I don't think they will. I guess there's always a potential, but they're kind of like a rich man's Benintendi is this tier of like, the guys we're going to talk about, the next couple guys, because, they don't have huge power. They don't have huge speed. They're good for average. They should have good counting stats. They're fine. They're actually, as you said, with the lead in, as for the AL only and NL only leagues, these guys are actually way more interesting for deep leagues because they are so good for counting stats. They should get at bats, if nothing else. And with those at bats, they're more, with those at bats, more than likely they're going to get the runs and RBIs, and they probably won't kill you in any category. The steals for Yoshida are just okay. You're looking at like 6 to 8 steals, maybe 10, depending on if he runs. Honestly, with the pitch clock rules, it's just a matter of whether or not a guy wants to run. I project him for 10 steals. That might be on the high side. I think he can actually improve this year a little bit as far as his average, but yeah, he's fine. All these guys are going to be just like fine.
Yeah, that's a great lead in for our whole podcast, Gray. That's really going to bring in the listeners. I really appreciate that enthusiasm about our very first guy right off the bat. I will say I don't, I look at projections and projections have him generally hitting better than what he did last year. If it was the fact that he got tired, which I can definitely see, there's more travel, it's longer, you play more games, it's against better players, you play in different climates, like it's a lot more to deal with. So I could see how just the grind got to him. But also, looking at like his K rate and whiff rate by his zones, like the top of half of the zone, he has no issues with. He sees it very well. He makes contact very well. The bottom half of the zone, he struggled with, and I think he can make some adjustments, but it's also just possible. He didn't see some of the left-handed stuff that he gets to see regularly now that's breaking away from him in the zone that he, in Japan like he does now. So that may be a gap in his swing that people were taking advantage of. As you said, he's a good hitter. expect him to be professional and figure out something to kind of deal with that. But it is a concern of mine, and why I don't necessarily think he's like a lock to hit 300. I would say he's probably more, I would say more like a 275 hitter, which is still absolutely fine in this range, but I don't know that I'm giving him as much credit as projections seem to on the strike zone. Moving on to number 42, Ian Happ. Last year, he went 21 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 86, 84, and hit 248. Young projected for 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 74, 78, and a 254 average. He had a career best K rate, second best walk rate. He's kind of settled into what he is now, and it's okay. It's useful, but is there any growth here, Gray, or have we kind of maxed out?
I'm actually, my Ian Happ takeaway is I wonder what Council is going to do with him, because like we know David Ross, like he just basically he put on those eyeglasses that have like the drawn on eyes and just slept in the corner of the dugout for 162 games and just let Ian Happ go out there and hit third all year, which I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do that again. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Council, it would be interesting to see where Council actually hits him, because I don't know. I mean, I see their lineup. I think they like Suzuki, Bellinger, even Morel, Dansby. Like their lineup's not bad, the Cubs. I'm not just saying that to get on your good side beat on. their lineup looks decent. I don't really understand the whole, Garrett Cooper thing. And the funny thing is, this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but what's a 2-hour podcast without a sidetrack? They really don't want to play Matt Mervis at all. They're like, the Cubs do not, like, let him go, man. Let him trade him for a middle reliever or something. That poor kid. They just went out and got Garrett Cooper for like, okay. I mean, I don't dislike Garrett Cooper, but it's just a bizarre pickup when you have Matt Mervis just like wheedling away down in the minors. Anyway, Ian Happ, yeah, I mean, he's like Yoshida. To me, he's Yoshida plus 3 to 5 homers, plus 3 to 5 steals, but minus 30 points in average, give or take. Average is obviously fluky, but yeah, that's Ian Happ is basically Yoshida, just a little less average and a little more speed and power. I don't mind him. Again, he's probably going to get 530 plus at bats, and he should be somewhere in the middle of the Cubs lineup. Maybe even I saw him hit leadoff in spring training. I don't know if that's going to continue, but we'll see. I don't know where he's going to hit this year.
Yeah, I mean, he does take a walk. He had a 14% walk rate last year. It's possible that he moves up into a leadoff role. I mean, he could fall back to as low as 6 or even 7 if he does struggle, because as you mentioned, there's enough bats around there, and we're not talking about like guys who haven't proven it before either, other than maybe Morel and if you want to throw Michael Busch in that conversation. But I think barring Michael Busch coming up and raking, he's probably going to be in the bottom third of that lineup. But I think Happ's gonna he's gonna stay where he is. He's fine. Like, he is a fine hitter. That's most of what the Cubs have is fine hitters, and we have there's a few guys that are maybe above average, and that's what the Cubs lineup looks like. I wish I could be more excited, but the pitching staff is not something to write home about. We'll move on, though. That's not really outfielders discussion. Number 43 is Stephen Kwan. Last year he had 5 home runs, 21 stolen bases, 93, 54, and hit 268. Yum down for 5 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 96, 51, and 286. So basically the same line with a better average.
Yeah, I think he had I think he was a little bit unlucky last year with his average. He's got good speed. I'm actually surprised he doesn't steal more. I wouldn't, actually, it wouldn't shock me to see him put up a 30 steal season. He's capable of that. Also going to be like, there's a chance here that he hits like 2 homers versus 5 homers. Like he's got no power whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, he's been more or less on the field like every game. He's stayed healthy. He last year he had 638 at bats. I mean, that's a ton of at bats hitting leadoff. Even if he's not great, 600 at bats at a leadoff spot in a major league lineup should get you near 90 plus runs easily. I have him projected for 96, but so that's a positive, and his average is a positive. He's got speed. He hasn't really 20 steals is fine. Like I said, he's capable of more, so you'd like to see more. So I mean, there's a chance here where he could have like 105 runs, 5 homers, 45 to 50 RBIs, 30 steals, and a 290 average. Like that's in the realm of possibilities for him. So that's decent. It depends on, a little bit of luck on his BABIP and whether or not he's going to run. But yeah, I mean he's totally fine for what he is. He's not like, you don't draft Stephen Kwan and start taping balloons to the ceiling and or rubbing balloons on your head to get static cling and sticking them to your shirt. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's useful, but he, like you said, there's the upside is maybe on the speed, and the average could go up. The BABIP was a little low, so he was a little bit unlucky last year. Moving on to number 44, which is Brandon Nimmo. He's kind of the inverse from a home run stolen base perspective of Stephen Kwan. And then he's the same. He, 24 home runs, 3 stolen bases last year, 89, 68, 274. You have him down for 20 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 101, 63, and a 269 average. Both leadoff hitters. I mean, that's what you're looking at here. Just depends if you need a little power or a little speed.
Yeah, I was just looking at his ADP, and it's at the 44th outfielder off the board, and I have him at 44 in my outfielders. So there you go. I have him at exactly at ADP. Yeah, I like Brandon Nimmo for what he is. I mean, he's like you said, he's exactly Stephen Kwan, just in the reverse. So, it depends on how much you need power versus steals. If you need steals, you go Kwan. If you need power, you go Nimmo. And they're more or less the same on all their other stats. I have Nimmo projected for a little bit less on average, but you could see them being close to both of them could end up at like 275, and then Kwan I have at a plus 10 points on average, and I have Nimmo at like a -5 on that, but they're more or less, neutrally, they're close to each other, just reverse in their steals and speed. I mean, excuse me, steals and power.
That's what you're getting, Brandon Nimmo, aka outfield Bo Bichette. Number 45.
Oh!
Tell me the line's not Bo Bichette. Tell me. Number 4.
Bo Bichette is not going to steal only 3 bags. Come on, man.
Sure? He stole 5 last year and got caught 3 times.
Come on, man. Don't be putting that on Bo Bichette.
You're right, because Nimmo hit more home runs last year. I mean, to be fair, it had more counting stats.
Oh my God, I hate you. I'm freezing. Right now. You're seeing like a frozen shot of me, and I'm on my way to your house. You're not seeing me live. There's a tape delay of Gray as I come to your house to haunt
know
you.
that there's a single person in the fantasy baseball community I'm scared about coming to my house, Gray. Number 45,
That's
Tyler
fine.
O'Neill.
That's a fair point. I've met some of the guys and
I have a third degree black belt, Gray. I'm not worried about the fantasy baseball community, I promise you. Um, and I have weapons. Tyler O'Neill at 45, 72 games last year, 9 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 27-21, and hit 231. You have him projected for 27 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 74, 77, and 246. There's some room for him to move within that lineup, depending on how everything shakes out. I don't know that I'm as optimistic as some other people seem to be, but I can see the path to, fantasy relevance here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Tyler O'Neill, at a certain point, we have to decide whether or not he's gonna be what he did in 2021 when he hit 34 homers and stole 15 bags and hit 286, or if we're never gonna see that again. And if he's gonna do it, I think he does it, in Fenway. Like if Fenway is gonna boost his BABIP, not probably to the point where he hits 286. Like I have him down for 246 projected, and so that's up from the last 2 years. Still not, he's not going to hit 285 probably. He strikes out, a decent amount, but Fenway will help for sure add a little bit of average. It should help him with power too. Like he's going to have, I mean, he could hit 45, 50 doubles in that park. I mean, that actually might not help his power, but I mean, he has so much power. He can hit the ball, so hard. The steals, I mean, he does have sneaky speed. He didn't steal really last year at all, but he has like the 15 steal year 2 years ago and the 14 steal year in 2022. And last year he was battling, I believe it was an injury. So, he just had an off year last year. And the year before wasn't really great either. But he's still young enough. I think he can get back to like a solid, like, if you're looking for upside versus like the guys we just mentioned in that other tier with Yoshida down to Nimmo, like they're solid bets for what they do, but you're not going to get any upside. Tyler O'Neill has real upside. He also he's got some downside too. Let's be honest. He's had 2 terrible years back to back. But I think, if I'm looking at a guy later who could potentially, break out, I could see the Tyler O'Neill breakout. Absolutely. I mean, he's not that far removed from a really solid year.
Yeah, and he had a back issue and then a knee issue later in the season last year, so did miss a good amount of time to that. And then, who knows how healthy he was when he was playing. So again, I can see the path to him being good. I feel like we're just sticking hope on 2021 though more than anything, where honestly the numbers look like the outlier. Like they don't look like the rest of his career to this point. So like I said, I see it. If he falls, I'll take him. He is the upside play in this range. And there's not, you kind of have to decide what your team needs here. In shallow leagues, you may not have to worry about taking Ian Happ at all. Like he may just sit on waivers on and off all season. Whereas, Tyler O'Neill and maybe some of the guys we're going to get to have a little bit of upside, and they're probably more the guys that you want in a shallow league. But in only leagues, in 15 teamers where you're trying to get production at the end of your roster or your bench, that's where, the Ian Happs, the Stephen Kwans, Nemos, O'Neills, that's where like some of those guys, or I guess not O'Neill, we're going to remove him from that group that I just said. That's where those consistent guys have their value. Number 46 is Lars Nootbaar. Last year had 14 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 74, 46, and hit 261. Jung projected for 15 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 71, 74, and 266. The K rate dropped, and in theory should hit in the top half of the lineup.
Yeah, I was just looking at what Roster Resource was saying for the projected lineup, and then I saw that they have him. They have Lars Nootbaar for a platoon. I guess he goes out versus lefties for 75% of the time, which is fine. I think for his stats, for what you want, his numbers. I mean, I think there's upside here. I do think his numbers to me look a lot more similar to like a Yoshida versus this upside tier that we're in. But he's also not going to play every day potentially. So I guess that's why I have him down here in the little bit of more of a risky tier. Because this tier is risky, but there's upside, right? And then I look at Lars Nootbaar, and I'm struggling to see the upside. I mean, it's there; it must be there because at some point I saw it. I guess he's got a little bit of power, like 15 homer power and 12 steal speed. Should hit for an okay average, like 265. If he hits third, that's decent. And then you have to swap him out when he goes against lefties. So, in a daily league, that's a little bit more valuable. Yeah, I mean, he's sort of fine. I guess there's this amorphous sort of upside that I'm trying to see right now that I'm not seeing as well anymore. His launch angle looks kind of garbagey too. I don't. Lars Nootbaar, man. You know what? Actually, I might have gotten when I ranked Lars Nootbaar, I might have just been hungry. I just was like, you know what? That's why you shouldn't rank when you're hungry.
Yeah, I mean, there's a non-zero chance that he plays like not even straight platoon. He could be at the bottom of the order instead of 3. Like, there's a lot of ways that this can go. If they want to get, like, say, Matt Carpenter in the lineup, maybe Nootbaar has to sit and Donovan goes to left field someday. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen. Jordan Walker could just destroy the world, in which case he moves up to 3 or 4.
Oh, baby. Say that again. Say it again. Oh.
Yeah, Jordan Walker's destroying the world. It's going to happen, Gray. Number 47, Daulton Varsho. Last year had 20 home runs, 16 stolen bases, 65, 61, hit 220. You have projected for 23 home runs, 16 stolen bases, 72, 74, 226. He'd be fine with catcher eligibility still, Gray.
Yeah. I feel like Varsho has more power and speed than Nootbaar, but probably going to hurt you more in average. So, it's like there's this chance of a 2020 season, but also it might come with a 210 average. And do you want it? Do you want that? I don't know. Maybe in some leagues, it could work out for you. He did have, he's got the same issue as Cedric Mullins, where it's like Varsho hits everything in the air, even though he doesn't really hit everything out of the stadium. So it's like his launch angle is really extreme. So it'd be nice to see Varsho maybe hit a little bit more flatter, but yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? that's how he hits. So yeah, I think Varsho. I don't know. I don't mind him in deeper leagues if you're looking at like a potential 2020 threat and you have the average that can handle his 225 potential average. So yeah, I mean he's okay for deeper leagues. Like he's probably like a fourth outfielder in a 15-team mixed league, and like a fifth outfielder in a whatchamacallit, a 12-team.
He's fine. He gives you, like you said, the power speed combo. Average, not so much, but it can, BABIP his way into, a 240, 250 average, and then all of a sudden the 2016 or the 2215, whatever he gives you, looks a little bit better. It is weird because he's one of those like reverse split guys. He's a lefty who can't hit righties. That's a little depressing, and just in regards to his potential upside. But I guess maybe one benefit is like there's definitely some room for him to move within this lineup, given we're counting on George Springer to stay healthy, Justin Turner to stay healthy, Kevin Biggio to stay healthy, Kevin Kiermaier stay healthy. Like that's a lot of guys who don't stay healthy that they're counting on to be on the field. So he could end up, hitting near the top of the lineup or in the middle of it just by default based on injuries. Wyatt Langford comes in at 48. You have him projected for 16 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 48, 51, hit 278. He went through 3 levels last year and didn't spend a ton of time at any one. So really not much to say here other than he's a great prospect. Maybe the number one fantasy prospect off the board in drafts just because it seems like his place is assured.
I don't know, is it? That's what my big thing with him is. Like everyone is just assuming. I haven't seen anything conclusively saying he's definitely going to break camp with the Rangers. I mean, I've heard that. I've heard, speculation to that effect. And I don't know. I mean, maybe. I just, I'm way more lukewarm on Wyatt Langford than I think just about most people. I have no chance of getting him in leagues where I have him ranked. Like it's just not happening. I have him way after everyone. I don't know. I just don't see it. I guess if I heard from the Rangers that he's definitely going to be on the whatchamacallit, he's going to be on the opening day roster, then I'd probably move him up a little bit. But even then, like he's definitely going to be hitting. Like you're talking about a lineup that is stacked. Like it's I don't know where he's hitting, but I can't see him hitting above like eighth or ninth in that lineup. I mean, I don't know. I have like serious reservations about whether or not he's even going to be in the, like if he rips up spring training, then he's probably going to break camp with the team, and he's going to look good. I mean he should at least, but I don't know. I mean besides the steals, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of disappointment here. I don't know. I'm really not in on Wyatt Langford. I don't know why. Like other people are so convinced that he's ready to go. The projections. I mean, even like taking me out of the equation. Even if you look at like other people's projections, like Steamer has them for like 18-ish homers and 10-ish steals, which I mean the steals seem ridiculously low. Like I don't know why they're projecting for only 10 steals. But like even that, like okay, say he goes 17-17 or 15-20. I mean it's fine. I don't see the huge upside here that other people must be seeing because yeah, a lot of times he is the first rookie prospect off the board in leagues. He's not for me. I would take Jackson Cheerio way before Wyatt Langford. Like I don't even think he's close really. Like I I have Jackson Cheerio. We went over him in the previous outfielder podcast. He's like a good 15 outfielders before Langford for me. Like I'm all about him. I would say, like Langford, if he's there at like, I think I have him around 150 overall, maybe 200. If he's there at like, okay, say 175 to split the difference. If he's there at 175, sure. I mean, I guess I could see the potential, possibly in one league just to have a taste, just to give myself a little taste. But I don't see it outside of like that, like possibly just to have one share, just to try it out, just to give it a little, just to give me a little skin in the game. I could see it for me. Other than that, though, I just don't see myself drafting him. I can't imagine it. I honestly, to like, he looks like to me like he's got next year. He's going to be drafted like around a top 35 outfielder in the range of like where Jordan Walker is right now. I see that for Wyatt Langford next year. So like you're just you're drafting based on hype if you're drafting Wyatt Langford as early as he's going in some leagues. Like he's going as high as like he's going in the top 100 in some leagues. Like that's really high for Wyatt Langford. I don't know. I'm just not there for him.
I will say there was an article, I think it came out either today or yesterday, that basically had the Rangers saying like glowing things. They loved his approach. They loved the way that he practiced, the way that obviously the performance, and just basically like saying that he showed them more than just numbers on the field. I mean, he hit 9 home runs, 11 stolen bases in 41 games through 3 different levels. Didn't hit under 333 last year. At any stop, I know average doesn't obviously translate over. Neither directly, neither does speed and power, but there's definite upside here. I would agree Chourio has higher upside for this season and potentially even long term, just because I think he's faster. So like the numbers he can put up speed wise are probably higher than what we're going to get from Langford at any point. But Cheerios also is actually going. I looked at he is going 25 to 30 picks before Langford. So there's a little bit of, Churio is the top guy, Langford's too, but I'll say I'm higher on him than you are, it sounds like, and potentially seeing more for upside here. Just seems like he's ready to hit at the major league level. Whether there's a lot of like power and speed to come with it, maybe not. It may be more of, as you were talking about with like Jackson Holiday, where he's going to be a good hitter. He's going to play every day. He's not going down once he's up, but it may not be as fantasy friendly as we think it is. Of course, I disagree with that sentiment too, but we'll move on. Number 49 is Chas McCormick. Last year had 22 runs, 19 stolen bases, 59-70, hit 273. You're projected for 15 home runs, 17 stolen bases, 54, 61, and 249. Second half was really strong, where he hit 285, 14, and 10. Chas McCormick, somebody I like grabbing late and has a little bit of power speed with upside.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, Chas McCormick doesn't have like the name recognition, or maybe he does, I don't know. But he feels to me like a guy who is being, slept on a little bit. But if you look at like his numbers, so this is where it's like hype versus reality. Like if you look Chas McCormick's numbers from last year, if he were to just repeat, that's better than any Wyatt Langford projections you can find. Like I know Langford obviously has upside, which is why I even have him ranked above Chas McCormick. But if you're looking at just like a floor versus a floor for both of these guys, Chas McCormick's floor is probably higher. So it's in a deeper league that matters. So if you have like a deeper league and you're looking at a guy like Chas McCormick, you're probably going to get basically what people are hoping and praying they're going to get from Wyatt Langford. You're probably going to get that from Chas McCormick with a little bit of upside as well, because like you mentioned, the second half for Chas McCormick. So yeah, I like Chas McCormick. He doesn't like I don't see a huge ceiling upside with him, but he had a nice little like breakout season. Is fueled a little bit by a high homer per fly ball. But yeah, he looks good as long as he doesn't seem like he can hit anything but fastballs either. Okay, I'm not going to say more negative about Chas McCormick. I like him. It's just like his ceiling, his floor looks pretty solid, and his ceiling doesn't look much higher than his floor. Like he's on like the ceiling's a little bit low on him.
It is, but again, if he just does what he did last year, you're still getting a pretty solid player. So just repeat what you did, Chaz, and we're all going to be fine with that. Number 50 is Kerry Carpenter. Last year had 20 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 57, 64, and 278 in 118 games. Young projected for 24 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 64, 72, and 264 average. Had a shoulder issue in May. Another strong second half guy with 287, 12 home runs, and 6 stolen bases in the second half. I was in on Carpenter last year. I was maybe a half season too early as he got it together in the second half, but I'm ready to be in on Kerry Carpenter this year again.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I thought when I first was doing my rankings, like I was going through and I just I list the names and then I go back and I adjust them for the rankings. And I was looking at Kerry Carpenter's name. When I just saw his name, I thought he was going to be ranked much higher for me until I did his projections and I saw his projections leave him kind of like a little bit wanting. He's like his ceiling. I don't know how high his ceiling is for anything other than like maybe he can have like a power uptick. But besides the power, Tigers stink. They're not good. I don't know. They. I will say this though for the Tigers, they at least attempt to be better, unlike some teams. But their attempts haven't really paid off. I'll say though, Kerry Carpenter and Torkelson, another season under their belt. Maybe maybe they take a step forward. And maybe Carpenter is better than he was last year for power. But yeah, he looks like a platoon player. So you're taking 120 at bats away from him. So he's going to lose some counting stats. So you're looking at a guy who's like around 65 runs, 75 RBIs, and then you take his steals are essentially like 5 steal speed. So 5 steal speed, so 65, 75, 5 steal speed. So then you just have how much power can he get in 450 at bats because you had to take the at bats away because of the platoon. So you're left with like around a 25 homer hitter. I don't know. It's not really amazing. Unfortunately, I see that's why at the end of the day I ranked him where I did and I didn't rank him higher because it's hard to get super excited about a 25 homer hitter with 5 steal speed who's going to hit like 260. It's fine. In a deeper league, there is this upside potential, so maybe he has more power in there, but we haven't necessarily seen that yet.
I mean, I would disagree just by saying he stole 6 bases in the second half alone. So, I mean, there is some speed upside there, at least in regards to what he showed in the second half. I think the power is a little bit more legitimate. And I guess maybe the biggest difference is I don't think he's getting platooned. I don't see why he would get platooned. I mean, he didn't really struggle like terribly versus lefties last year. 235 is not amazing, but you're going to pull him off for like a 250 Matt Verlaine or like a 240 Andy Ibanez. Like, I don't see him really going to the bench for any reason other than injury, which is why he missed time last year. It wasn't platooning. He had a shoulder issue. That's another reason I'm in. I think there's like 30-10 potential here. So I'm definitely more of a Kerry Carpenter fan than you are. Number 51 is MJ Melendez. We've talked about him already. Number 52 is Starling Marte. Last year in 86 games, he had 5 home runs, 24 stolen bases, 38, 28, and 248. You have projected for 8 home runs, 25 stolen bases, 62, 66, and 241. He can steal bases still because of the new rules. To be determined if he can stay healthy or not, Greg.
Yeah, no, I know. And I think, even the steals, like, yeah, there's the new rules, but can he really, not only can he steal, he can, more than likely, but can he steal and stay healthy? Can he steal on like legs that potentially, any little nagging injury sets him back a little bit, and he's like, if he's, I don't know, if he's dealing with like a sore quad or something, or a sore hammy, so then he might be playing but not necessarily running. He's, what's he, 35 years old? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like I might be a little bit too high on Starling Marte in my rankings. Like, looking at him, he feels to me like a guy who very easily could become like, platoon player slash, maybe, I don't even know, I don't know his contract, but I doubt he's able to even get traded because whatever they paid him, it was probably too much. And he doesn't fit in the Mets plans anymore. So yeah, I mean, I honestly, I feel like Starling Marte, if he had a season where it was basically the end of his career kind of season, where it's like, hit like 5 homers and stole 15 bags in 250 at bats and had more injuries and a lot of IL stints, that it wouldn't shock me at all at this point. I honestly, I kind of expect it a little bit. So yeah, I'm not really in on Starling Marte. I probably should have even ranked him a little bit lower.
Yeah, I know. I am pretty much with you. I will say, 24 stolen bases in 86 games, that still presents stolen base upside, something that's hard to find at this level of the draft. So there's definitely something to be said in him as a piece to your team. I just wouldn't count on having it for the full season. And even the speed I mean, it's dropping. It was really helped by the rules. So in 2019, which was his peak speed, he was 29 feet per second, at least peak speed in recent years. It's down 2 feet per second to 27. That's a lot slower. So we'll see if he can keep that up. If he can stay healthy, there's value there. He is owed $20 million this year, and next year the Mets could potentially pick that up and get him traded if they could get something, that they can use back. But I would assume he's probably not going anywhere with that money for now.
He's owed what, 20 million?
This year and next.
Oh my God, the Mets, man. God, how are the Mets always doing the exact opposite of what they should do? How is that possible? How can one team like, it's not like we're not talking about like the Nats or something here. We're not talking about a team that's not trying. Like, the Mets have money, do the exact opposite of what they should do. How is that possible? How can one team be so wrong? Ah,
That's a strong question, Gray. Ask them and the Rockies, and maybe we'll get an answer someday. Number 53 is Chris Burrell. Number 54 is Luis Rengifo. Number 55 is Ezekiel Duran. Number 56, ooh, that hurts, Chris Bryant. Damn. Number 57, Taylor Ward. 14 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 60, 47, and 253. You have him projected for 20 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 68, 66, and 271. I mean, I feel like he had a lot of helium last year and have not heard a single peep about him this year. You know, I mean, he had face fractures in July, but everything else was actually okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to see why people were excited about him, because if you look at 2022, he looks really good. If you like put your hand up to the screen and block out last year, his numbers still look good from last year, from like 2022. They still are like, there. This is also, I should say with Starling Marte, I was saying that I probably ranked him a little bit too high, but this is, for what it's worth, this is fifth outfielder territory for 12-team leagues. So, you can see a fifth outfielder flyer on a Starling Marte, just like you can see one on Taylor Ward. Will it work? I don't know, but in a 12-team league, if you're taking a fifth outfielder flyer, it's not the worst thing you could do. And then if he doesn't work out, you just drop him and move on to someone else off of waivers. So for that reason, I like Taylor Ward. We're only 1 year removed from him looking really promising. On the other hand, he is 30 years old. So the fact that we're 1 year removed from him looking promising and that he's 30 years old, it's not great. I mean, it's like do or die time right now for Taylor Ward. He does need to do something in 2024. What he can do too is also there's the ceiling on that. Even though people were excited for him last year, and I was one of them. I mean, I did write a sleeper post for him last year. I did like him a lot. So, but even that ceiling on what he could potentially do, it feels, a bit low. Like it's not like maybe 25, 10, 275 maybe as a ceiling, which is fine. I mean, that's not a bad ceiling, but it's not like, it's not like he's a potential 30-30 guy. I mean, he is what he is.
Yeah, Bo Bichette's not a bad ceiling. I mean, he could be fine.
Please leave Bo Bichette alone.
Moving on to Eloy Jimenez at 58. Last year at 120 games, 18 home runs, 50, 64, and 272. Young projected for 22 home runs, 64, 71, and a 277 average. Career best K rate, had abdomen, calf, and groin injuries, though. And that's Eloy Jimenez in a nutshell.
Oh, man. There's nothing funnier than for some reason, the Chicago White Sox, they're not a great team on paper, but boy, they have some amazing predictions for themselves. I mean, between Moncada and Eloy Jimenez, their preseason predictions for themselves are just incredible. Eloy Jimenez is like projecting himself to be healthy for 160 games and to hit 40 homers. I mean, you can't even, like Jan Moncada, who is projecting himself to be a 30-30 guy, he doesn't even believe Eloy Jimenez. I mean, it's like, are you crazy, man? Just stay on the field for 130 games. Let's try 130 and then work your way up. Let's see if you can do 130, Eloy. How about that?
Yeah, I would take 130. That would be really nice. I mean, I guess the upside's still there, right? Like he's still a good hitter. It just feels like we're so far removed from 31 home runs, which was in 2019 with the super mega bouncy ball. So, like, is that even realistic?
No, that's with Eloy Jimenez. Like you're saying, like, even you take 130 games in some way, like the Pope himself shows up at a White Sox game and blesses Eloy Jimenez's quads and keeps him on the field for 130 games. Even then, you're looking at what, at most 25 homers and a 275 average with zero speed. Okay, it's fine.
You know, Bo Bichette's fine. It's fine.
Stop it.
Number I'm just gonna keep doing it the rest of the show. Every player that we get to, I'm just gonna bring up Bo Bichette for the rest of this show. Number 59, which is a different tier, Nelson Velasquez, 53 games last year, 17 home runs, no stolen bases, 35, 34, and hit 235. Young rejected for 30 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 71, 83, and 244. I mean, this one feels like a very good gamble to take after 270, Gray, and even reaching a little bit.
Yeah, I wrote a sleeper post for Nelson Velasquez. I like him a lot. I think I mean, he's got, like, his numbers in just the major leagues alone in 53 games, like you mentioned. I mean, last year in his combined, actually not 53, but if you combine his minor league numbers and his major league numbers, you're looking at a guy who hit 33 homers and stole 7 bags. I mean, the average might not be great because he does strike out a bit. Yeah, I mean, I have a whole post written about him, so people can go and search for that on the site. I love him. I'm kind of surprised that he's going so late, to be honest, because he feels like a guy who could easily get, like, some helium, because he does have, more than likely, he's not going to steal a ton of bags, but he could steal 10, 12 bags. I mean, that's, in today's game, that's not a lot, considering the speed he has. If he steals 10 or 12 bags and hits 30 homers, that sounds great. 30 homers, 12 steals. I mean, and you're not that far off with, like, his average. He's looking at like a 245 average. So it's not like, obviously it's not amazing, but 240, you can live with a 245 average. I mean, Kyle Schwarber is going to give you a 205 average if you're lucky. 245 is great. I like Velasquez a ton. I think maybe because he's with the Royals and people just sort of have, they write off some Royals, potentially, or maybe they feel like he's a post hype guy, so he hasn't clicked yet, but he sort of clicked last year. I'm not, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why he's so slept on in drafts, but he really is. I mean, he doesn't have splits. He should play every day. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that I was upset about missing out on in the later rounds for our AL only, because I was just like, he's so cheap and I can grab him, and I just don't understand it. Like, if it feels like we have like the Kyle Schwarber starter kit, plus he could not hit for an average that tanks you, because he hit 235 last year. Yes, it was only 53 games, so take it for what it's worth. But he had a 221 BABIP in that time. Like, he hits the ball really hard. 235 with a 225 BABIP. You normalize that to like 260, and all of a sudden he's a 255, 260 hitter. So there's room for growth. He hits the ball really hard. If you change the minimum batted ball events down to 100, which fits his 53 games, he's second in barrel rate. He's 50th in EV 50. He's 38th in hard hit and 71st in average exit velocity. He's going after 270, Gray. Like, I feel like this is just a guy that is just being missed completely for no reason, when Kyle Schwarber is going in like the top 60. Moving on to number 60 is Leody Taveras. Last year he went 14 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 67, 67, and 266. You have him projected for 20 home runs, 17 stolen bases, 61, 67, and 269. I mean, little power, little speed, just gonna hit at the bottom of the lineup and probably not playing every day.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't make that sound very good, really.
I mean, that's where we're at now. I just, if you can play daily.
I did draft him in our AL only league. I probably paid a decent amount because I needed steals. And if you're late in drafts, I don't know. Like right now, I think the Rangers, to me, I'm curious to see how the playing time plays out because the Rangers won the World Series, right? Hopefully that's not news to anyone, but they won. And they won with a team that looked like a certain way, and they have those guys. So I'm curious to see how much, like Leody Taveras wasn't bad last year. Like he was solid. So I'd be kind of shocked if he's not an everyday player. And even if he hits ninth, okay, it's not the best thing in the world. Like my projections do show that his runs and RBIs aren't great, but he did go 14-14 last year as a 24-year-old. He can build on that. Like I mean, maybe I'm being too optimistic with my projections, but I like Leody Taveras a lot. Like he feels to me like a potential 2020 guy very late in drafts. Like his steals, if you could steal 15, you could steal 25. Okay, so that's easy to say, but he can do it. I mean, he does have like a ton of speed. Whether or not the Rangers run, that's another thing. That's another question. But he can run. He can steal a bunch of bags. He also has surprising power. Like I have him projected for 20 homers. Maybe that's a tad high, but I mean, he hit 14 last year as a 24-year-old. He grows into a bit more power. I'm probably a little bit more optimistic than most people on Leody Taveras, but I like him a lot. I think he's got a good skill set for fantasy, like a 5 category guy later on in drafts. Even if he doesn't get to 2020, 15, 15, 270. He is a 270. I mean, he's a 270 hitter, ish. I mean, obviously. But he's a decent. Oh, I know. Sorry about that. He's a decent average hitter, and he's got 2020 potential. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, the batted ball was better last year, so it's a little bit of a deciding year for him. Like, can he continue to hit at least 15 home runs and stay with what he did last year, or will last year be an outlier and he's really like a 8 to 10 home run guy and it's really speed based. I do believe there's more speed there if they let him run. The Rangers didn't really run last year, so I don't know if that's going to change any. I think there's going to be some movement along like with Taveras. Again, I think they'd rather play Langford every day, assuming he gets the job out of camp, than they would play Taveras every day. Duran probably is the switch for Taveras versus lefties. That's where Taveras struggles the most. So maybe the best thing going for him is that like the guy who would play center field really isn't a direct swap for him. That might be the best thing going for him. But yeah, I mean, you can do worse down in this area. Definitely a little speed source late. New to here, number 61 is Jung Lee. 7 years in the KBO. He's never hit less than 318. He has a little power, a little speed. He had a sub 10% K rate for the last 5 years and at least a 10.5% walk rate for the last 3 years. Very patient hitter. You have projected for 8 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 81, 49, and 307. Pretty much has the leadoff job blocked up from everything that's being said. But I don't know if there's a lot more other than the average and run.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he looks for me. He's like Stephen Kwan minus maybe 8 to 10 steals, or maybe Yoshida plus a little bit of average minus power and steals. Like it's hard. It's always interesting when a guy comes over. What he ends up being versus what he was. Overseas. I don't know. I mean his numbers overseas look great. Like he looks like he has like a really impressive strikeout rate and walk rates. He looks like a solid real world baseball player. Maybe not the best fantasy guy, but it's super late in drafts at this point. So I could see the flyer on him if he's around this late. And if he's around this late in draft, sure, take a flyer for a fifth outfielder in a 12-team league, or roughly a fourth outfielder in a 15-team league. That's fine, but I just wouldn't have like huge expectations for him on power, and at least on power. The speed could surprise us potentially, and he does have good contact, so he might hit for a nice average.
Feels like a guy you pair with one of the guys we've already discussed before, like a Daulton Varsho, where you're not getting average, but he's going to give you counting stats. You pair him as your outfielder 4 with a Jung Lee as your outfielder 5, and you get kind of one complete player as your back outfield piece. And, you can kind of live with that as you're building out your roster rather than just taking a 220 tank hit or, getting an empty average from another guy. You get a little bit of combination there.
Yeah, or if you don't listen, like, I'm not drafting Schwarber, but if you have drafted Schwarber, you put him with Jung Lee, and that's a solid matchup type thing.
Yeah, just like it depends on what your build is, and if you have one of those average drain guys, or if you're searching for average late in your draft, it's just a nice guy to kind of pivot to, rather than a lot of the guys in this area are going to be 220 to 250 hitters, and you're really not going to find a high average type down here. Number 2 is Jack Sawinski. Last year he had 26 home runs, 13 stolen bases, 63, 74, and 224. You have him projected for 27 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 64, 77, and 212. The guy that you could also pair with Jung Lee right here. Power, speed, no average what to speak of.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Slewinski, if he could figure out the average thing, like last year, a 32.2% strikeout rate, if he could get that down to like 28% strikeout rate, Slewinski could potentially be like a huge breakout. Like he has 32 homer power, 12 to 15 steal speed. If he could hit 250, not saying he will, but if he could, that could be a really nice breakout. But he's more than likely going to be platooned. He's probably not going to hit for a great average. So, yeah, but he does have good power and, decent speed.
Yeah, and if you're playing OBP leagues, he's actually a lot more valuable there, where he took 14% walks last year, so that helps buoy the 32% strikeout rate in OBP leagues. Not so much an average. It's just like the batted ball. He's hitting 53.5% fly balls. 11% of that is infield fly balls. Like, you just need to put some of that into better contact. And the average could definitely come up, and he's only going to be 25 this season, so it's not like he's done growing and couldn't improve. Definitely a guy in shallower leagues to potentially take a shot on if you're looking for a little bit of upside here late. Number 63 is Sal Frelick. last year in 57 games, 3 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 29, 24, 246. You have him projected for 16 home runs, 32 stolen bases, 86, 70, and a 283 average. Should be able to hit for average. Definitely more speed than power, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a sleeper post for Sal Frelick. I love him. I'm actually surprised. He's another guy who I'm really kind of surprised that more people aren't interested in because, like, he looks like the 3-hole hitter for the Brewers. I know, like, Roster Resource has him as a platoon guy, but I don't know. I mean, maybe he gets platooned out occasionally against lefties, but for the most part, like, who are they playing? Who are they playing instead of him? Joey Weimer? I mean, it's like, why would you take a guy who is like a future piece for your future, a guy who like you're building your future on, and platoon him out? Like it would just be so dumb. I mean, teams do dumb things all the time, so don't get me wrong. They might do something dumb. I don't know how. We haven't seen yet how Pat Murphy, who sounds like, yeah, is it Pat Murphy, the Brewers manager, sounds like a guy who's like really disgruntled bar owner. But yeah, Pat Murphy, I guess, could potentially platoon out Frelick. I don't know why they would. It would be really dumb if they did. But, dumb things happen. So that's why he's kind of buried a little bit in rankings and, why I might even have him a little bit lower than I would normally. But I like him a lot. I absolutely would draft Frelick in any league.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I'm not really worried about a platoon either. I think there's really limited options for them in regards to, who they could potentially platoon him with. And then there's also like Garrett Mitchell's in the outfield there. Why wouldn't you platoon Garrett Mitchell instead of Sal Frelick? Like if you're going to be platooning somebody or, any number of other guys that they could potentially swap out that don't need to play every day. So yeah, I think Sal's more or less playing every day. A lefty, we've talked about this plenty of times, like a lefty sitting against elite lefties is not the end of the world. And a lot of times they get in on the back end of those games in regards to weekly lineup formats. So there's worse things than him missing maybe, the start of 20 games because they're going against an elite lefty. Number 64 is Willie Castro. We already talked about him. Number 65 is Max Kepler. Last year, he had 24 home runs, 1 stolen base, 72, 66, and hit 260. You have him projected for 25 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 64, 71, and a 253 average. He always seems to miss some games, whether that's injuries, days off, but he should be in the middle of lineup when he's out there.
Yeah, here's a little remove a player's name and tell me who the guy is. I'll say Max Kepler has for projections wise. Max Kepler is projected for like 24 homers, 255, 260. Another guy who's going way before him is getting projected for like basically the same numbers. And that guy is Eloy Jimenez, who never even stays on the field. Now, it's not like Kepler is necessarily a guy with great health. He's also, he's missed games in the past. He's missed, he missed 30 plus games last year. That was still more than Eloy Jimenez, though. I mean, it's not. I don't like Kepler. To me, I nearly wrote a sleeper post for him because like I see Kepler's numbers and I'm like 25 homers, 1 steal or 2 steals or 3 steals, whatever the case is, and not a handful, not many, but hits 250. That's got value in like deeper league. It's not necessarily the most exciting pick. You're not going to be like, grabbing Max Kepler late in drafts and getting getting virtual high fives in your draft chat room, but it's valuable. I like Kepler. I think he's a little bit undervalued right now.
I agree. I feel like every year Max Kepler is a little undervalued. I felt like it was last year where he was basically going free, and it seemed like again this year he's just undervalued. There's especially in deep leagues and 15 team drafted holds, AL onlys, like there's definitely value there. I think our own Laura Holt got him in our AL only for like $8. That was a great buy. I just didn't have the money at the time. Number 66 is Jared Kelenic. Last year had 11 home runs, 13 stolen bases, 44, 49, hit 253. Young projected for 19 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 50, 55, and a 238 average. Can the Braves fix Kelenic? The power speed still seems to be there. Average, not so much.
I think the stadium's going to help a lot. If I were the type that would take a flyer late on an outfielder, actually I am that type. But if I could see taking Kelenic and seeing what happens. I don't like we talked about this on the last podcast where Snicker sets his lineup in April. Like Snicker is basically like he's drafting like a best ball league. He just drafts a draft and hold with Snicker. He just grabs guys, puts them in the lineup, set and forget it. That's it. And with Kelenic, he's already said that Kelenic is an everyday player, and I believe him because that's what he does. So the problem with that is we haven't really seen Kelenic be an everyday player. If we've seen that before, then I would be a little bit more excited for him. So I would draft him, but I don't know if he can hit lefties. Like they're saying he's going to play versus lefties, and that's all well and good, but I don't know if he's going to be able to hit them. And also, we haven't really seen him stay on the field he's struggled to stay on the field as well. So, I mean, Kelenic I think he still could potentially break out. I like him a lot. It's a great lineup. There's a lot of potential here. I don't mind the flyer, but I can't like say my projections look that great for him because I still think even though he's going to quote unquote play every day, I still think he's going to miss a bunch of at bats for either injuries or because he's just not going to be able to hit lefties. And at some point, Snicker's going to have to do something because of that. So even though I like him and I would totally draft him, I think there could be still some potential here where he could disappoint. I mean, he disappointed a lot in the past, so we'll see. Hopefully, whatever he does, because like last April, it looked like he was breaking out, and yeah, I mean, he just needs to do that for like another month or two, like 3 months. Let's be good for 3 months. Let's do that.
Looked really good to start the season. Everybody who drafted him for, I feel like it's been years now that we've been drafting him, waiting for this promise of what's going to happen. We were ready for the breakout. I'm with you that I believe it's still potentially in there. I think the Braves lineup, I think the Braves field does help him to some extent. And being around great hitters definitely can't hurt in regards to trying to figure things out. And for what it's worth,
it may not hurt. It can't hurt. Well, it could hurt, but it also, like I mentioned, that it could hurt him facing lefties. But also, like you just mentioned, with it can't hurt being around good hitters. It may help him with confidence just to stay in the lineup all the time because unlike like sometimes these young players, everyone loves to do like the Kevin Cash where they platoon players out. But there's also the flip side of that coin is just playing a guy every day, letting him get comfortable and actually becoming great, like let a guy become great.
yeah. And for what it's worth, he actually had a higher average last season versus lefties. So, if he just continues to do what he's been doing, just continues to build, there is some hope here. I'm not marking him off. I think there's some hope. There's worse things you could do with a flyer here at the end of the draft, your drafts, and even hitting out of the 8 or 9 spot in that lineup. That's going to turn over to Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, and Matt Olson. Like, if he's on base and the lineup turns over, there's a fairly strong chance he's scoring and could still provide some counting numbers that are equivalent to like a 6-hitter in a crappy lineup. Jose Siri at 67 last year had 25 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 58, 56, and hit 222. You have projected for 23 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 55, 57, and a 209 average. High power speed, or a little bit of it. Low average, high Ks, no walks. It's another kind of that build.
Yeah, it's like Slawinski minus a little bit of average, but maybe a little bit more speed. Also, he's got a little Kelenic in him too, because it's like, what would he look like if he actually played every day and stayed on the field? If he could, play 145 games, Jose Siri could potentially maybe a 30 plus homer, 20 plus steal season, even if it comes with a 210 average. That's valuable. So yeah, I've been in on Jose Siri for a while now. I kind of love him, but it's late in the drafts now, and you're taking flyers. So I don't love him enough to put him in the top 40 outfielders, but I would take him as like a 5th outfielder flyer in a 12-team mixed league, or a 4th to 5th outfielder in a 15-team mixed league.
Yeah, I think he's more of a 15-teamer for me, but I could see in a deep 12-teamer taking the shot on him in the reserves and just seeing how things shake out. Because as you mentioned, like if he can stay healthy, 25-12 was at 101 games. I mean, just little Mr. Prorator here, that's like 30-17 without too much thinking. And I mean, a 269 BABIP last year, pretty sure he can reproduce that, if not even improve that slightly, and get his average up to a 230, 240. And then all of a sudden we're talking about a player who's drafted 20, 30 picks higher around.
Siri, can you reproduce? Sorry, Gray. I'm not. I am just your AI assistant.
Do not understand the request. Number 69 starts a new tier. Brian De La Cruz, 19 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 60, 78, and a 257 average last year. You have him projected for 18 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 66, 71, and a 263 average. K rate did drop as the season went on. He has a 33% K rate in April and dropped it to 17% by September. Average in the second half looked pretty good, at least better. 39th in average exit velocity and EV50, 25th in hard hit rate. I feel like there's some promise here on Brian De La Cruz.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a for the people who are listening to the 4th hour of our outfielder podcast, you get an Easter egg. I actually wrote a sleeper post for Brian De La Cruz. I just never posted it because I ran out of time and I had to move on to the rankings. But yeah, I like Brian De La Cruz. His ceiling feels a little bit lower than some of the other guys we've mentioned above, and this is a new tier. So at this point, these are guys that aren't necessarily going to get drafted in 12-team mixed leagues and are more like 15-team or deeper, 15-team mixed league or deeper. For Brian De La Cruz he looks really solid for a 15-team mixed league. And, most of our audience plays in 12-team mixed leagues. So, it just didn't make sense for me to put up the sleeper post for De La Cruz. But I like him. He's a high floor, low ceiling guy. So you're looking at, potentially 20 homers, 5 steals, 270 average. It's not bad. He should play every day in the middle of the lineup, and with the strikeouts getting cut, his strikeouts getting cut, there's potentially he could even hit for a better average. Maybe he becomes like their go-to 3-hole hitter. He makes more sense as a 3-hole hitter than like Josh Bell or Jake Berger in their lineup. That is.
Yeah, absolutely. And like he had 2 months in the middle of the season where he was just horrendous. He had like 215, but he had like a 230 BABIP over that time. Again, BABIP isn't a tell all, but you can get lucky or unlucky with it pretty easily. 224, 230, that's always going to be on the low side of what your luck is. And with as hard as he hits the ball, if he could just get a little bit of launch angle, like I feel like there's even like 30 home run potential there. If he could just get some launch angle, there's just way too many ground balls right now. Just doing his best Christian Yelich impersonation and not being fantasy friendly. But I do like him, and I think there's more to come from him. Number 69 is Tommy Pham, who is still a free agent. Number 70 is Austin Hayes, 16 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 76, 67, and 275 last year. You have him down for 16 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 73, 64, and 259. He is consistent but boring production, Gray.
De La Cruz minus like a little bit of power just because the park has really killed Austin Hayes, and maybe a little bit of average less than Brian De La Cruz, but probably a little bit better of a lineup. So yeah, but more or less like very similar to Brian De La Cruz, and also it makes sense because like I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago I was excited about Austin Hayes, and I think I might have wrote a sleeper post, and and then Camden Yards just completely killed Austin Hayes, and now his power is like he's 15 to 17 homer power, and I just can't imagine it getting much better than that in that park, unfortunately.
Yep, that's pretty much what I'm thinking as well. Moving on to number 71, Brent Rooker. Last year had 30 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 61, 69, and 246. You're projected for 26 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 58, 64, and a 220 average. High K rate, does take a walk, high fly ball rate. I'm going to have way too many shares, Gray, because I think I love Brent Rooker.
Really? Yeah, I mean, I guess he's fine. He's got solid power, and because the lineup is just like the team itself is just such a mess that he's gonna play as much as he can play. I don't, he probably won't get taken out of the lineup. Not a ton, at least. He does walk. Yeah, I mean, he's fine. I don't know. He's really, honestly, he's not that different than Kyle Schwarber. I mean, he's a little bit different. He's got a little bit lower of power upside, but he's got a better average probably. So yeah, I mean, he's fine. I don't know if you have strong feelings on Brent Rooker, go for it. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like Brent Rooker. I mean, he hits the ball extraordinarily hard. He was top 40 in average exit velocity, hard hit, EV 50. I mean, he just smashes the ball. Don't have to worry about him putting the ball up in the air. He does that plenty. The K rate is obviously horrendous, but he still hit 246 with the horrendous K rate. So, yeah, I mean, I think he just plays every day and continues to smash home runs. So that's pretty much why I like Brent Rooker. And I think there's even potential for him to improve a little bit because he kind of struggled, the May, June, there was really a lull where he struck out a lot, didn't hit for average. That could still happen because it's in his profile, but there is some room for him to improve still. Yeah, I mean, 30 home run power this as late as he goes, I'm perfectly fine with it. regularly going after or right around 300. Next tier here starts with number 72, Pete Crow Armstrong. 73 games at AA last year. He had 14 home runs, 27 stolen bases, and hit 289. 34 games at AAA. He had 6 home runs, 10 stolen bases, hit 271. Young projected for 10 home runs, 24 stolen bases, 54, 48, and a 234 average. And unfortunately, I really like Pete Crow. And then the Cubs brought in Mike Tauchman and Gary Cooper. And now I don't know where he's playing.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, he feels to me like he should be the starting center fielder with, I mean, Cody's not bad, but I mean, Crow Armstrong he's really good in the outfield. So, I mean, I would put him in center and, move probably Michael Bush over to third, or I don't know. Nick Madrigal shouldn't be in the lineup. So, I mean, can we get Nick Madrigal out of the lineup? So,
yes,
if Pete Crow Armstrong, like if Pete Crow Armstrong can make Madrigal go away, I like that. I don't know. I haven't really, it's hard to say right now if he. I think Pete Crow Armstrong makes more sense, and he's already started. His clocks. They already brought him up last year, so I would think that they would go to him. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously tentative right now. We're still early spring training, so if he gets sent down, I might lower him in the rankings. But for right now, yeah, I like him as a flyer. Super late.
Yeah, only 13 games last year up in the majors, so they started the clock, but it really didn't hit any significant milestones. So the Cubs have been um, uh, very poor decision makers. I'll just put it that way. And so I don't really expect PCA to get a shot like he should. I agree. I think he should start in center. I think you move Madrigal to the bench, and he's just a utility infielder. You move either Morel or Bush over to third base, and you go about it that way. But it does not seem to be the way that the Cubs are likely going because it's the Cubs. Number 73 is Parker Meadows, 113 games in AAA last year, had 19 home runs, 19 stolen bases, hit 256. He had 37 games in the majors, hit 3 home runs, 8 stolen bases, hit 232. Young projected for 10 home runs, 21 stolen bases, 63, 55, and 239. If you look at other projection systems other than yours, it seems really light on the speed. I think he's stealing 20 plus even without everyday playing time. And he may actually play his way into everyday playing time because he does have a decent eye. We'll take a walk, even if like the batted ball isn't overly impressive. It doesn't pop out.
Yeah, I think his problem is similar to other guys I've mentioned earlier, where like at least last year in limited time in the majors, he did hit a lot of fly balls, which you don't really love to see because he's got some speed. You'd like to see some more line drives and less fly balls, but yeah, he looks. I mean, if it were me, I would just play him at leadoff every day and see what happens. But unfortunately, I just don't see them playing him against lefties. And he's also got limited, potentially limited power because the stadium stinks. So maybe 10 homers, optimistically 12 homers. Okay, potentially, but he's got to steal, 25 bags to make that real, if he goes 10, 20, 235, in a bad park, it's not really super exciting, but yeah, I mean, there's, obviously it's an upside play. So if you feel like he could potentially, because there is another, there's another level here that he could potentially get to. Does he get to it this year? I don't know. I would say probably at best you're looking at a guy who could have a good second half leading into, a great 2025. But to come out of the gate this year and look amazing, I don't know. It's a flyer though. He's going late enough.
Yeah, flyer on some speed that isn't absent of power. Like you said, he should hit towards the top of the lineup, or at least be given that chance to stay there. There's not a whole lot of other people that really fit the top of their lineup. You kind of look at the Tigers and what they're doing there. There's not a lot of OBP guys necessarily that they're moving up into the one spot. So hopefully Beddoes can maintain the one and provide a little bit of fantasy value. Probably more AL only and 15 team. Number 74 is Matt Wallner, 67 games in AAA last year. He had 11 home runs and hit 291. He had 76 games in the major league level, and he had 14 home runs, 2 stolen bases, and hit 249. Young projected for 23 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 51, 54, and a 231 average. High K rate, did have an 11% walk rate, which is nice to see. And the batted ball numbers were pretty solid on Wallner as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. He was another guy who I looked at, really hard about whether or not I wanted to write a sleeper post on it because his batted ball numbers look great. Like he looks like if you take his name away, he's got 25 homer power, 5 steal speed, 2 hits 230. I mean, the average is a little bit less than what we were saying with Max Kepler, but not not that different. Probably looking at a platoon, unfortunately, because Baldelli platoons everyone, and he's definitely going to platoon lefties. So he's going to miss at least 150 at bats at some point in the year. So it's going to hurt his counting stats. So there's some issues, but it's late enough where I don't mind the flyer if you're able, especially if you're able to, in a daily league, if you can move him in and out of the lineup when he's playing versus not playing, it's not a bad flyer.
Absolutely. Don't mind that flyer at all. And, as you mentioned, the batted ball numbers are great. So if you're one of the guys who likes just guys who will smack the ball, Matt Wallner's your guy. Number 75 is Harrison Bader, 98 games last year. He had 7 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 44, 40, and 232. You projected for 10 home runs, 18 stolen bases, 53, 51, and 256. This is the opposite of Matt Wallner. Harrison Bader can run. His batted ball is atrocious.
Yeah, it's not great. But he does have good speed. So if he can just get to like 10 to 12 homers and steal 20 plus bags, there's value there. I imagine he's probably going to hit ninth, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field the last couple of years because of the plantar fasciitis. So I like Bader in theory. If he were to get 150 games and 550 at bats, his stats would look really good. But I just don't think he's able to get to it.
Yeah, I've never liked Harrison Bader. He's cheap steals, but just not for me. Number 76 is Johan Rojas. 76 games at AA. He had 9 home runs, 30 stolen bases, and hit 306. 59 games in the majors. He had 2 home runs, 14 stolen bases, and 302. Young projected for 8 home runs, 27 stolen bases, 52, 58, and 271. He's going to be at the bottom of the lineup, but this is another cheap steals play and one that should come with a decent average.
Yeah, no, completely. He's probably another guy who's he's undervalued. I mean, he's got like 5 to 8 homer power, 25 steal speed, hits 270, hitting ninth in a good lineup versus first in the Guardians lineup, and you could see the comparison between him and Stephen Kwan. His numbers may not look that different than Stephen Kwan, who's going a good 50 picks to 100 picks before him. So yeah, Johan Rojas isn't not a terrible flyer late. He's probably looking at a potential, some sort of platoon potentially. Even though he's a righty, so I don't know how that platoon would happen necessarily, but for whatever reason, he doesn't feel as secure in playing time, unfortunately. So you have to keep that in mind. There's a chance that, Rojas could lose some at bats, maybe.
Yeah, he could. I think there's like a non-zero chance he moves up to one. Is that crazy
Oh,
though, Gray?
that would be sweet. Yeah,
Like,
please let him move up to one. Yeah, I mean I've drafted Rojas already in a draft and hold. So from your mouth to God's ears, I would love to see Johan Rojas move up. I don't know, man. Schwarber has been so locked into that leadoff spot now for going on like 2 years with Thompson. Rob Thomas, smooth. Yeah, I think Rojas probably hits ninth, but hopefully he hits leadoff. I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
I mean, when you could put a 197 average hitter who can't run, who clogs it up and doesn't drive anybody in with his 47 home runs at the top of your lineup, Gray, I mean, you got to do it. Heaven forbid he would hit like 5 or 6, knock some runs in. Jesus. Um, number 77, Wilyer Abreu, 86 games in AAA, 20 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 67, 65, and 274. 28 games at the major league level. He had 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases, and hit 316. Young projected for 19 home runs, 9 stolen bases, 51, 58, and a 221 average.
Yeah, I mean, he seems, some of these guys, like Abreu, definitely, Parker Meadows, like these guys, if they were getting called up like a week into the season, you would be spending so much fab on them. But when you're drafting them, it's like, yeah, I mean, okay. I don't know. I mean, Abreu looks great on paper. Like, he had a really good walk rate in his time in the majors. He had great walk rates in the minors. He looks like he should be in the everyday lineup, if not at least like for the majority of the time, and just platooned out versus lefties. He looks good. I mean, he looks like he could be a 25 homer, 12 steal. It depends on what the average is. It's going to come down to average. If he can translate his plate discipline from the minors into the majors, he should hit for a decent average. I project him for a not great average, because last year his BABIP was insane and his K rate was a little high. But I mean, there's the potential here. It's like all these guys. Definitely, Abreu has potential. Whether he reaches it this year, I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of been a fun area for us to discuss outside of Harrison Bader's boring ass. Like all these guys in this tier are really fun, and could potentially do something. Wilyer Abreu, my AL only team. Thank you very much. Number 78, Giancarlo Stanton, 101 games last year, 24 home runs, no stolen bases, 43, 60, and 191. Young projected for 28 home runs, 56, 66, and a 216 average. Like, the batted ball isn't bad, but it's kind of bad for him, and he misses time all the time, and still under contract for 4 more seasons.
Yeah. Wow. Jeez. Yeah. I mean, I think he's probably at this point, Giancarlo. I mean, love him. Let's just say that. Still love him. Big fan. But if he's, playing 300, if he's playing enough to get like 375 at bats, you're probably looking at like 27 homers and a 215 average, which, you can probably find that elsewhere. It's not the greatest line. There's still the potential, I guess, for him to like, go go off and hit like 35 plus homers and 250 with even still, that would be in probably 400 or less at bats. Like I still can't imagine him playing for more than 400 at bats, but he could have like one of those like partial seasons where he has a great 400 at bats. But yeah, you can't ask for much more, and you shouldn't. Don't ask for more from Giancarlo. He's a sweet guy. Let him be.
Let him just show up, shave beard, no facial hair for the next 4 years at the Yankee Stadium, and be a part-time power hitter. Yeah, I mean he's late power. You take the gamble on the health. Edward Olivares comes in at 79, 107 games last year, 12 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 47, 36, and 263. Young projected for 15 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 43, 47, and a 271. There's not really bad platoon spits, but I feel like he's getting platoon still.
Yeah, probably. He's also he kind of reminds me of Jose Siri a little bit, where it's like his numbers, if you prorate them out, they look really good. But yeah, are we ever going to see a full season from him? Probably not. He actually, unlike Siri, he can probably hit for a good average too. But again, I don't. It's like, where is he? Is he playing every day? I'd like to see him play every day. Will he? I don't know. There's other guys in their game plan, I guess, that are just in front of him. But yeah, I like him. It's a flyer, You're late in drafts. You take a flyer if you're feeling it. I would guess he's probably a platoon player at best. Hopefully not a bench player, but he's really good in limited duty. I'll say that.
Yeah, we're really gonna let Joshua Palacios and Andrew McCutcheon at 38 years old run out there instead of Edward Olivares, but that's where we're at. I mean, he's not exactly young either, so it's not like there's. I just feel like it's like play him or move him. He's shown a little bit. Yeah, I guess I'm crazy because I kind of like Edward Olivares. Had the oblique injury last year, got optioned, not ideal. But if he just can play every day, I do feel like the numbers will be there. And as you mentioned, like he actually feels like somebody who would hit for good average, has power speed. I don't really understand how he can't get time to play in Kansas City and then now in Pittsburgh. Like these teams don't have people. How can he not get on the field? What's going on? Number 80 is Will Benson. Last year in 108 games, he had 11 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 51, 31, hit 275, sorry. Given projected for 15 home runs, 16 stolen bases, 58, 49, and 241. And for me to own every Reds player grade, they all can't be top 100 picks.
We didn't even talk about Jake Frelick. Yeah. Oh, what was that? Sorry. We didn't even talk about Jake Frelick yet. Yeah. He's like. I like me some Will Benson again. I like everyone in the Reds lineup except for Elly De La Cruz. Unlike everyone else who only likes Elly De La Cruz. I like Will Benson a ton. I just don't know if we see enough at bats to really, in a 15 team mixed league. You can play matchups a little bit. In a 12-team mixed league, yeah, he's probably a waivers guy, but you can take a flyer to see maybe he gets hot and keeps everyday playing time, but that would mean someone else is losing playing time. Someone else who we love already. So, it's hard. It's hard to be a Reds fan.
I'm Will Benson's actually my pick for loses playing time in the Cincinnati outfield. I think ultimately the guy you mentioned, Jake Fraley, it takes the playing time away from Will Benson, and Benson becomes more of a part-time guy. Um, Yeah, I like both of them though, and I think you can get both of them very cheap. So just continue to stack reds, and one of them is going to be good. I can almost like it feels like between the two of them, you're going to get a good outfielder. You just may have to do a little bit more work than you think you're going to have to do. Um, Greg, we had planned on maybe getting to 100. We're at 81 with if we consider Jake Fraley covered. Let's pick a few names here out of what's left that we like and what we might pick them for.
Okay, so Kyle Isbell, Royals center fielder, he should be playing every day. He's got a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. He's really interesting in deeper leagues because the ceiling isn't that high, but I think he has an everyday job. And if he's a 12-12, he's like a 12 homer, 12 steal guy with everyday job. That's, counting stats should be there a little bit. I mean, probably at the bottom of the lineup, but still enough for a deeper league. So in a deeper league, that's kind of interesting. The Angels have Mickey Moniak supposedly is going to be playing at least half the time as a leadoff guy for the Angels. So that's, in a deeper league, that's something. I liked Stone Garrett a ton, Nationals outfielder. I liked him a lot. I almost wrote a sleeper post for him too, but I'm worried a little bit about his injury at the end of last year. So, there could be a potential, if he can stay on the field and hit 230, he's got power and speed. So, it's something. It's, these are really late picks, but I like it. And then Jason Dominguez he's already talking about like getting back by May. So that's going to hurt Verdugo, but that's going to help Dominguez's value a lot. So right now, Dominguez, like the market hasn't really caught up to Dominguez, and everyone still is looking at him as like, very, very late flyer. But if he's back by May, that could be huge. Like if you're looking at a guy who's going to get 400 at bats versus what everyone thought of, which was a half season of say 250 at bats, 400 at bats from Jason Dominguez. And I mean, he could potentially be a top 30 outfielder the rest of the way once he gets back. And if he's back by May, that's really huge. So yeah, so there's a few names.
Yeah, I'll throw in a few extras here just to make sure that we get over the 2 hour mark if we haven't already. Brandon Marsh, he can give you just a little bit of everything. He's still only 26, if you can believe that. And so there's still some upside there as a guy who was a former top prospect. You could do worse than that. Andrew Benintendi going to sit at the top of the White Sox lineup for whatever that's worth. Going to give you an average, doesn't hurt you, and runs, and then a little bit of power, speed here and there. Stone Garrett, if he can somehow finagle his way into full-time playing time, I really do believe he's a very solid, bat. I just don't know that the Nationals are ever going to give him full-time playing time, unfortunately. And then, Colton Cowser, definitely a prospect to keep your eye on to see if he gets a shot out of camp or just is one of the early call-ups. And Oscar Colas, who, Pete, we were all fighting over last year in drafts for the White Sox. Obviously disappointed in us in 2023, but there is still every bit of the upside we thought Oscar Colas had is still there. And again, the White Sox lineup is not set. It is the least healthy lineup I've maybe ever seen in my entire life. So there's definitely a possibility that he ends up, if he doesn't make it out of camp, up soon and then has a full-time job.
If Colas doesn't make it out of camp because instead they're going to go to like Dominic.
Oh, it's happening.
Or Paul DeJong or Nicky Lopez. Kevin Pillar, dude. Or Danny Mendick or Gavin Sheets. If they decide not to go with Colas because of any of the names I just said, ooh. And not to mention,
I feel like it's gonna happen.
Eloy, Jimenez, Moncada, and Louis Robert have to stay healthy through camp in order to keep Colas out. So yeah, I would say I would second that Colas opinion.
All right, great. That's plenty of names of the outfield. If you have any other questions, you can always find us in the comments on Razzball or on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Gray is the owner of the at Razzball account. If you are drafting, good luck with your drafts. If you're prepping, continue listening as we go on to starting pitchers. Next week, we're going to start with the part 1. I'm sure that will be another 2-hour podcast, so get ready for that one. Until that, Gray, have a good week, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, Lates.